In letters and numbers, it reads that Zach Hubbard was a junior in high school when the Columbine shooting hoax happened. His school was in Washington State, more than 1,000 miles away from Columbine. Despite the distance, within a week we had a new school policy born out of this fear-mongering and federal deceiving campaign. This new policy was all students in name badges at all times or detention. I wasn't too good at following directions then, so my days often went something like this. Hey Hubbard, where's your name badge? I'll see you in detention. Think about it. A whole duty, calling me by name, requesting to know where my name badge was. This was my reality, and my point in sharing this story is to remind you that the contrived propaganda has real consequences over our lives. Name badges wouldn't do jack shit to stop a shooting. It was just to make things a pain in the ass and to create an excuse to punish someone for nothing. People who want to stop the New World Order, to stop the tribe, to stop the mass surveillance that will come with it, are failing to realize that surveillance cameras are a demon with a life unto itself. You can stop the tribe, and you can stop the New World Order, but how will you stop the mass surveillance? And mass surveillance always leads to tyranny, without exception. It doesn't matter how well-meaning the people in charge of this world may be. You can put the tribe out of power. You can put every corrupt bastard out of power. But it doesn't matter that even if all you have is a community of white Gentiles, the technology of mass surveillance is a beast with a life of its own, and it will always creep back, no matter how much you try to push it away. And it will always creep back in a most innocent of manner at the start, and for the most innocuous and well-meaning reasons. Think about it. Let's say you have stopped the New World Order. You have banned all the criminal elements that were brought to bear against the white race by the tribe. But now what? The technology still exists. The knowledge how to make it still exists. And let's say there is no longer need of it to combat crime. It doesn't matter. Each person will still have a desire to carry a camera to document something interesting, like their vacation or just anything peculiar they might happen to witness. What about safety reasons for using a camera other than crime? Like to document what the bus driver did, or what was happening in the bus when the bus crashed. What about nanny cams? Imagine a baby suffocates on a pillow because you weren't keeping an eye on the infant when you could have done it via a camera while you were away. Or maybe someone wants to be able to put in a camera just to keep an eye on their dogs in the backyard. Some people might still end up in shitty circumstances and become mentally ill, and as a result somebody will get something stolen from them by these mentally ill people. Or maybe a person wants to make sure the people using their property treat the property responsibly, and so they put up a camera. Like if someone damages a piece of equipment at the gym, for example, even by accident, you might want to know who did it. And so at the earliest opportunity, the technology will creep back, little by little. More and more of these cameras will crop up. All these cameras will unintentionally become a mass surveillance grid. It doesn't matter if the NSA isn't around to watch you. There will be some sort of a leader or a rule maker in charge. Or just the majority of your people might settle on rules that the minority might not like. What mass surveillance does, without exception, is make it so instead of the power being equally distributed among the people, the power will always be with the rule makers. And to say that private cameras don't matter, only the government ones matter, is wrong. In fact, private cameras are even worse than government cameras. Every private camera, without exception, becomes a proxy surveillance node for the government. If I film some people somewhere just walking and upload it to YouTube or anywhere on the internet, the government automatically has that footage. You hang up security cameras so you can use their footage as evidence for police. And police is government. Therefore, you are a proxy spy node for the government. It's just instead of the footage going to the government directly, you make yourself into a middleman. But so what? And this is where I have to come back to the story from Zach Hubbard's high school days regarding the name badges. Let's say a principal or a superintendent had created that pain-in-the-ass policy about name badges. In a world of the 1970s or the 1980s, where private surveillance cameras were extremely hard to come by, people low on the totem pole, like the high school students, could easily make life suck for the person who instituted such a rule. Some kids could decide to drive over to the bureaucrat's house at night and throw eggs at it, or smash the windshield in his car, spray paint something rude on his garage door, TP his house, or whatever they decided. And they would get away with it because the guy wouldn't have a camera to catch them. What about the hall monitor who gave Zach Hubbard detention? The kids could have put on ski masks and jumped that guy at night, or damaged his property in revenge, and gotten away with it. But imagine you're living in one of these smart cities. Every camera is recording your voice, your private conversations, your private conspiratorial conversations, where you are conspiring to defy authority. Your cars are driverless, and they are outfitted with cameras on every side, and have built-in GPS locators you can't turn off. There is a security camera on every light pole on the street. There's a license plate reading camera on every street block. What if there is a security camera facing the street on every house you drive past? How are you going to get away with fighting back against authority in the way that I just exemplified? There will be one long movie of you discussing your plans, of driving somewhere to fulfill your plans, of fulfilling your plans. There will be GPS data of where you drove, and even if you walk and put on a mask before reaching the guy's house, some camera will record the moment you covered your face, because the coverage will be absolute. All the authorities will need to bust you is to locate that right camera. So if a principal of your high school decides to institute a rule you don't like, or the government, how will you get away with striking back at this entity from the shadows in a low-life manner, where you smash a window in their car in the driveway, and then run off into the darkness at 3 o'clock in the morning before the guy can get out of his house to see who did it? The rule maker will always have full authority in such a world, without exception. And even if the cameras aren't controlled by the government, if they are just private cameras that happen to be everywhere, the same exact effect will happen. The rule maker will have full authority, and everyone will be helpless before the rule maker. It doesn't matter who the rule maker is, or whether his or her intentions behind the rules they make are good or bad. There will be no balance in the universe. And it's not something you will be able to vote your way out of. Because if the rule maker holds all the cards, then he holds the power over the outcome of the votes. And in this world, you will never get the majority to fight back against something unfair. So you will have to do it alone, or with a few like-minded buddies, or as a small underground terrorist group. But there won't be such a thing as an underground existence if cameras are everywhere. I wonder if there is any white teenager in existence anymore who would actually make it a fun mission to go somewhere at night and vandalize a teacher's house or something because the teacher was an asshole. I went to schools that were 98% white, and there have been incidents of vandalism where somebody broke into a classroom and vandalized it, or kids vandalized the school, drew swastikas with permanent markers on the walls and the doors. And this was in a white area. So that means in the early 2000s, some white teenagers still had the spines and the guts to fight back. And surveillance cameras, digital surveillance cameras that were simple to install, were not yet available on the market. And so people who were low on the totem pole, who were largely powerless, still had some sort of power to strike back at the school and at least restore some sort of a balance to the universe, and they did it without getting caught. But are there any white teenagers left now who would do stuff like that? Or are they all just playing video games? And how many are so gutless and spineless? And, white teenagers who are probably softer than girls now. White male teenagers who are probably softer than girls now. That many of them would quake with righteous indignation at the idea of doing something defiant like that. Inside Edition is a channel that is watched mostly by children. Go suggest to them the idea of vandalizing a school to fight back against the oppression of the school, and suggest to them the idea that it should be illegal to use a security camera video as evidence, so that way people have the freedom to fight back against tyranny, so certain students can go out and vandalize a classroom and not get caught. And see how they will react like you're fucking crazy. People don't have any defiance in them anymore. People don't have any fight in them anymore. People have been broken. They want to give everything away to the authority. And if you argue against giving everything away to authority, they look at you like you're insane. That's wrong, they will say. The principal has a law-given right to make such a rule. But you don't have the lawful right to go out and vandalize his house for it. That's the excuse they will give, and defend it as if they're ready to lay down their lives for it. Oh yeah, people will fight. People will still fight, but they will fight for the authority that oppresses them. They will not fight against the authority that oppresses them. None of them will question the rules. All of them will pretty much abhor the idea of doing anything illegal to fight back. And they all speak of the rules and the laws as if they are as immutable as the laws of physics and must be accepted because that's the noble thing to do. It's like their car got stuck into the snow or something and they react, what did I expect driving that car in the snow without chains on the tires? Of course it got stuck. And they'll have the same attitude about tyranny, where they'll say, well, what did you expect bringing a toy gun through a TSA screening line? Of course the TSA was going to confiscate it. Of course it's for a good reason, that's why they did it. As if the government is as uncontrollable as a force of nature, and it just has to be accepted. The white race has evolved to put up with the ordeals of the natural world, that the natural world has thrown at it without complaint, such as having to survive winter and accept winter as a fact of life. And for some reason it has wrongly adapted that attitude toward the government as well, as if the government is just like winter, and there is nothing you can do about it except adapt. And so the government is spoken of not as people that can be killed and removed out of the way, but as if it's just like winter and there is nothing you can do. It doesn't matter if the New World Order is stopped. It may be stopped, but will I stop filming people with my camcorder and violating the privacy they would have otherwise had before digital camcorders came on the market? Will it stop people from using cameras the first moment something goes wrong in their lives that a camera might have solved? Most likely not, unless you make the manufacture of the technology illegal, but that will open up a whole new can of worms. How is it going to be any better than what we got now if we start enforcing laws like that? Hunting after contraband cameras? It will be as bad as the war on drugs. Isn't it interesting how the New World Order has left behind a demon that has a life of its own? This demon that are digital cameras. And it will rear its ugly head again and again, subjecting people to the same kind of depravity to which the tribe had intended to subject the people within the New World Order. Artificial intelligence, killer robots, surveillance devices. The knowledge to make these things is out there. And even if the New World Order is stopped, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. Only way to be rid of it, as if a polar shift happens again, and 99% of humanity is wiped out, and all who knew how to make this technology are dead, and all the data on how to make this technology is destroyed, and the only people left alive are the ones who barely know how to start a fire without modern matches or a lighter. You're not going to be rid of this demon.